YGO Strat single card discussion is going to be talking about some of the cards that have impacted Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout the years. Today's card, the boss monster to define boss monsters, Apoqliphort Towers. Apoqliphort Towers was first printed in New Challengers in November of 2014, and as of this video, that remains its only printing to date. A level 10 Earth Attribute Machine type monster with 3000 attack and 2600 defense, its effect reads: cannot be special summoned. Requires 3 Klee tributes to normal summoner set. If this card is normal summoner set, it is unaffected by spell and trap effects and by activated effects from any monster whose original level or rank is lower than this card's current level. All special summon monsters lose 500 attack and defense, and once per turn, you can make your opponent send one monster from their hand or their side of the field to the graveyard. Their choice. The boss monster, and a card whose impact was strong enough that its name would go on to be a stand-in for the unaffected by card effects effect even years after the card lost its relevance. Apoqliphort Towers was the first time in the game's history that a boss monster was such a boss monster. Up until that point in the game, there had been plenty of powerhouse cards that had defined formats and served as boss monsters. Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, Chaos Emperor Dragon, Envoy of the End, Dark Arm Dragon, the Dragon Rulers, and countless more, but nowhere quite as obnoxious as Towers. At the point when Towers was released, Shaddoll, Tellarknight, and the earliest version of the Burning Abyss decks were their top decks. Each of them were using powerful and or resilient monster effects backed up with some really solid spell and trap lineups, and all of the decks had access to the freshly unbanned at the time Raigeki, and all of them would have some sort of struggle against Towers, as its presence on the board felt sometimes unbeatable. It wasn't helped by the fact that Apoqliphort was a very helmet-friendly style of deck, with builds at the time running 3 copies each of Skill Drain and Vanity's Emptiness. And since Towers was unaffected by spell and trap effects, if the Klee player had Towers on the field already and then activated Skill Drain, Towers wouldn't be affected by it, meaning it could still use its effects and remain unaffected by everything, while you had to play through what is best described as
some bullshit.
Not to mention Towers' other 2 pain-in-the-ass effects, namely reducing the attack of all special summon monsters by 500 to make it just that much more of a nuisance to get rid of, as powerhouses of that format, such as BLS, couldn't destroy it by battle, and the ability to make it get rid of 1 monster per turn just meant that you would continuously lose resources the longer it was on the board, or be left with only spell and traps that couldn't solve the problem. While the card was a pain, truthfully, most Apoqliphort decks at the time would at best side deck it, as the aforementioned triple Skill Drain and Vanities were pretty good at winning games without having to distribute 3 monsters. That changed in July of 2015 with the Advanced Edition release of Crossed Souls. This little box came with one of 2 promo cards from the upcoming Clash of Rebellions, either the useless Return of the Red Eyes or the powerhouse of a card that was Wavering Eyes. Wavering Eyes honestly could probably use a video on its own, but in the context of Towers, it was a game changer. The April 2015 ban list had semi-limited Scout, Apoqliphort Searcher, and limited both Skill Drain and Vanities, meaning the deck had to adapt to stay strong. And with double Scout, triple Summoner's Art to Search Scout, and now 3 Wavering Eyes, it was very easy to get and use both of your Apoqliphort Scout effects in one turn, and the Towers alongside the material to summon it, and that is what players did. Towers Turbo was a deck that did exactly that. Turbo out Towers turn 1, sit on it, and then spam all the Klee Pendulum monsters to win. It was an annoyingly solid deck at its time. For North American players, we had access to the newly released Diamond Crab King, and that card saw its only meta relevance ever, crashing into Towers to get it off the field. For note, this works because Crab King's attack becomes 3000, and so isn't affected by Towers' effect to reduce 500. For the European players, however, who did not get access to Crab King, it was a manga promo and therefore illegal. The European play, for whatever reason, I don't fully understand why, they got to suffer underneath the weight and strength of Towers. The card went on to be a thorn in EU players' side, certainly until the November 2015 ban list, which finally banned Towers. There it would remain banned until February of 2018, by which point the game had seen an influx of other Towers-esque boss monsters, such as Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon, Super Quantum Mech King Magnus, and as such, players were just more accustomed to dealing with these sorts of boss monsters. But with that said, Towers' impact on the game had already been set in stone. Like I said earlier, still to this day, you'll hear players refer to boss monsters with that unaffected or just pain in the ass effects to get rid of as Towers. an honor reserved for such legacy cards as Towers itself or the real powerhouse, Gem Knight Garnet. And so that concludes our look at single card discussions, Apoqliphort Towers. Stay tuned for our next video, and feel free to suggest some other cards to review, or I don't know, do I still do deck profiles? We'll find out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on YGO Strats.